I'm too fast. Round five. No special training. Just be at the fight. I'm ready to back up everything I'm saying, and I'm through talking.
This gymnasium is packed. Absolutely packed.
Coming behind Bert Everett. Now watch the continuation on the play. Kermit just flattened Bert Everett on that play, and no foul was called.
Nader backs in on Cons and rolls that hook shot. Washington dominating the glass right now. Look at Washington underneath. Dave Bing. Boy, Washington looks good, doesn't he, off that glass here this afternoon? 8:51 to go in the first half. Buffalo leading Boston 29-28.
Well, it's going to take more than that, Brent. Cotton Fitzsimmons said he's got to.
Washington. Nader rolls the hook. And again it is Washington who's rebounding.
Welcome to another episode of Alumni Talk. I'm the host, Ricky Goins, who also serves as the VP of Team Operations for the Alumni Basketball League, who will be bringing you multiple games in 2023 around the country. Definitely follow us at on Twitter at ABL the USA, at the ABL USA, Instagram at ABL Ballin, and of course our website www.ablballin.com. We also, this show will be on YouTube and it'll also be on Apple Podcasts. I want to welcome a very special guest from my hometown, the legend, Mr. Kermit Washington. It's great to get you on here to talk some old school basketball and to talk about your impact. On DC basketball and just basketball, college basketball as a whole. Just to get you started, just talk about how you started out playing basketball. I was doing some research. I saw how you grew later on. I definitely want to hear about Coolidge because that's where I went to. But just talk about your story as a youngster getting started.
As a youngster, first of all, I was a really good baseball player. So with all the YMCAs and the Catholic Youth Organizations, CYOs, I was always a good baseball player.
Now, back in those days, they had really good playground directors. There was 10 and under, 12 and under, 14 and under. So they did a great job with the kids. Because I went to Rudolph. I lived near Rudolph. But we'd always played all the different playgrounds around. So they did a wonderful job. Now, football was my first love because you had the Washington Redskins. And we loved the Washington Redskins. Were they a good team? Not really, but the score would be 50-45, and it would be entertaining to watch. Sonny Jurgensen, Charlie Taylor, Bobby Mitchell, Jerry Smith. I mean, just name them. Then you had Larry Brown later on. So you had so many good players. Now, did they win? Yeah, then they started winning a little bit because you had Kilmer that took over. Then you had Theismann. So we loved football. That was everybody in my neighborhood loved football, and that's what I loved the most. And Calvin Coolidge, I played football and I lettered in tennis too at Coolidge, because a director, what's it called? Driver's ed teacher, Mr. Richardson, wanted me to play tennis because he was a tennis coach, and I used to play tennis because my father played tennis. Now I'm talking about tennis for a black kid. So as long as you can get the ball across from one side to another, you were good in the black community. But so I played, I learned in tennis my 10th and 11th year. But every time we would meet the suburban kids in the championship, they beat us to death because they were good. So basketball is just something I played on the playground. I wasn't very good, but we had a star on our team named Glenn Price. And it was not a bad team. I think we were like 16-8 at Calvin Coolidge. And he was 6'9", averaging about 30-some points a game. And he was my best friend. And so he told me, well, if you go out for the basketball team, I'll give you a ride to school and a ride home. I said, okay, because only 2 people had a car in a whole school out of 1,500 people. And you know how the weather gets in D.C., and we had to walk. There's no school buses. I don't know what these people talk about, no school buses. You walked in the weather, the cold or whatever, the snow, you walked. And I really lived in the Roosevelt area. See, people don't realize that a lot of us, we didn't want to go to Roosevelt, and for me, because it was during the gang time. You had the Decatur Street gang, and then you had Riggs Park, and you remember Bertie Backus Junior High School?
Yeah, I definitely do.
That was a rough school, brother, and I was just tired of being around all of that violence. So I said, the teacher in Bertie Backus, I remember this distinctly. We had to go to the board because she was lazy. It was like Friday. She didn't go home. She says, go to the map and tell me what area do you live in. Now, I live in the Roosevelt area, but I went up there and said, oh, Coolidge. I live in the Coolidge area. So she wrote it down. I hit it off to Coolidge because I didn't want to go to Roosevelt because of the gang situation and the Decatur Street gang. So I went there, and then my best friend, Glenn Price, was the star of the basketball team. I said, okay, if you're going to give me a ride to school and a ride home, I'll go out for the team. But I wasn't expecting to play. I was expecting to sit there, watch him play, get a ride to school and a ride home. That's it. That's the only thing those are the only expectations I had. But some of the guys didn't do well in school, so they got kicked off the team. So the coach would put me in the game. And I said, Lord have mercy, you put me in the game? So I got in the game, and a few games I played okay, and other games I was awful. And a lot of games I never even got in. So because I had embarrassed myself after the year, I said, I just want to get better to play on the playground at Rudolph Playground. Because Rudolph Playground had the best players come there Monday through Thursday. From everywhere. During the summer. This is during the summer. You had 10 of us made the NBA or ABA from that playground. It'll never happen again. But 10 of us made it. And so many of the guys were great college players back then that were from that playground. So
Can you name a few for me?
Oh, yeah. Austin Carr, Dick Catlett, Collis Jones, Bernie Williams, Fatty Taylor, Adrian Dantley, Kenny Carr, Duck Williams, Tim Bassett. I think Ronnie Hogue maybe made pro. I don't know. Let me think who else made pro. We had, let me see. Let me see who else. James Brown didn't make pro, but we had really good college players. Oh, James Garvin would come down there. I think he played with the Celtics for a while, went to Phelps. The playground was unbelievable. Monday through Thursday. Now, Friday, nobody played nowhere. Nobody played nowhere. But Saturday, you had Luzon, Rose Park. Where else they play? Turkey Thicket. You had all of these places, guys who played. So on the weekends, you had to drive around to find out where everybody was. But there's such great competition. And you know how the heat is in D.C. It'd be 100 degrees. So we try to get there about 10 o'clock. But by 12 o'clock, the heat on the summertime was so tough that you'd have to end the games. But the competition was monstrous. So I'm not even talking about the guys who went to play college ball. You had so many that went to play Division I college because basketball was king. People didn't have cars. They didn't have videos. They didn't have TV. So they played ball. And the games, John Thompson would come down there. He would bring his whole St. Anthony's team down there. And, it was rough. And then you had guys that would come from outside of D.C. to come down there and play. Like you had Charlie Scott, Nate Archibald, a lot of other guys. Let me see, Joby Wright from Indiana. And they would come down to that playground. It'd be 100 people down there watching, drinking, listening to loud music, Marvin Gaye, all those guys. It was a fun time. But you had to be good to get on that playground. You had to get in the games. And first, I didn't get in. But as a freshman, what happened? I tell people the story. Because I had embarrassed myself, I wanted to get better. So I read that Spence Haywood had a weight vest And you know who Spence Haywood is, right? Superstar. And he would run with it. And then I read that Adrian Dantley or James Brown jump rope. So I said, I'm going to buy me a rope. I'm going to jump rope with his weight vest, 20-pound weight vest. And I got up to jumping 10,000 times a night with a 20-pound weight vest without stopping. It took me like an hour and 20 minutes to do it. So I go, my brother played pro football. So he was very tough on me also. He just said, you got to get it done. So I didn't start jumping 1,000. I jumped 100. Then I doubled it in a couple of days to 200, then 400, then 800, 1,600. And it got up to 10,000 times a night. And then it's funny that you say that. I got a tryout. They had to let everybody try out that was a senior to the Allentown tournament. And I had a guy that bet me, said, well, you ain't going to go out for that. You think you've gotten better. I said, yeah, I've gotten better in 3 months, but I'll go out for it. And I went out for it, and I had improved so much. I didn't make the team, but college coaches came around and started offering me scholarships, and to a guy who didn't even get in a lot of games.
Man, I mean, that's amazing. So talk about like going to American. You know, I was just thinking about it because American just beat Georgetown
Yeah,
last week.
we never
So
we never lost to Georgetown with John Thompson there. We just never lost because he hadn't gotten the superstars yet. But the reason I chose American University is so simple. When like Howard University, Georgetown, George Washington, Maryland offered me a scholarship after seeing the improvements I had. But I told my father, I can't go to Maryland. I hardly got into high school games. I go to Maryland, you know, they want to become the UCLA of the East. So I said, no. I said, I'm not going to go there. Lefty Drizel's good guy. Loved him. And I went to America. They took me out to dinner. And listen, I had never been out to dinner before in my life. Never. Oh, no. They didn't have no money to go out to dinner anywhere. I grew up with a great grandmother. And then my father got remarried. She had money to even eat dinner half the time going out. So they said, get anything you want to eat. I said, okay, I'll take a steak. I had never had steak in my life. And when they brought the steak to the table, I thought they were going to cut it for 4 people, all the coaches and me. They said, you can have this whole thing is yours. I said, if that steak is mine, I'm coming to your school. Where's your school? I never heard of American University because back then, blacks really weren't allowed to go across 16th Street too much unless you were going to work. You were questioned, why are you over here? You know, and that's in an area where blacks really just worked. They didn't live over there. And so I said, I'll go to American University. I went to American University and I loved it. It was no violence, no fighting. I could eat what I wanted to eat. I had never had food like that in my life. I thought it was wonderful. And so I go there as a freshman and I average about 18 points and 23 rebounds a game from averaging about 5 points and 5 rebounds as a senior in high school. But it's from the jumping the rope. I mean, I would jump rope incessantly. And then I would run up and down the stairs with the weight vest too, the dormitory. So I got so good so quick, I was named the top 10 freshman in the country. And that's just the improvements that I made. It was just incredible.
no, I mean that's so. You're the last college player to average 20 and 20.
Yeah.
I mean, and then this is what makes your story amazing because we have these conversations about like college basketball. You went from American University averaging 20 and 20 to the 5th pick in the draft. I mean, that right there won't ever happen again. From American 20 and
Here's the thing. I just try to outwork everybody. Now, these athletes are better than me, but here's 2 things I try to tell them. You just have to outwork people. I mean, I never had an attitude. You told me to do something, I did it. Most of the people that I grew up with did not make it. They did not make it educationally wise. They just didn't make it. I wanted to make it, so I was willing to do whatever it took to be successful. Now, jumping rope 10,000 times a night with a 20-pound weight vest, I tell guys after I finished playing, I told them what I did. I didn't want to tell them when I was playing because I didn't want them to do that to become as good as I was as a rebounder or as a jumper. But my bad games in college maybe were 15 points and 15 rebounds. That's a bad game. That my greatest games were against, Georgetown, St. John's, Syracuse, Louisville, all the big schools. I played really well against the good schools because I was ready to play. LaSalle, but I knew
Who were some of your matchups in college? So was Wes Unseld still in Louisville, or he was gone?
Louisville had two guys that made it. Junior Bridgman and another guy, forget his name. He played in an NBA for a short time, but they had a good team. They were good. Louisville was good. We played them in the tournament. But see, I tell you now, here's the thing. St. John's had three guys that made the NBA. Mel Davis, Mel Schaefer, and I think Mel Keone. Okay, then you had Syracuse had three guys that made it to the NBA. The big center, Smith, Dennis Duval, who played for the Washington Bullets. And you had another guy, I don't remember his name. We played Duquesne's. You had Durrett Durham, who made the NBA, and Mickey Davis made it, which is Brad Davis's brother. He played for Milwaukee Bucks. LaSalle had, what's his name? Ed Searcy. He made the NBA. We played against Temple, and they had a guy named, forget his name. He made the NBA. Old Dominion had a guy made Twardzik. We played Richmond. Richmond had a guy that played the NBA. I forget his name too. So we probably had about then they played St. Joe's. They had a guy that made it was Mike Banham, who played in the NBA. So we played a lot of teams that had guys that made the NBA. And I always played better against them. Really, only guy that ever outplayed me was the big center at Syracuse, and he was 7 foot, about 240, 250. But then I was only weighing about 190, and he was just big.
I'm looking at your draft class, and you were with Doug Collins and Mike D'Antoni. So what was your draft process like? So after college, now you're entering the draft. Did you work out for teams, or what? How'd that go?
The thing is not like it is today. After my sophomore year, the Miami Floridians, which was the ABA, wanted me to come out. I said, no, I'm not interested in coming out. I'm having fun. My junior year, the New York Nets wanted me to be their first round draft pick. They said either me or Jim Jones, who played for Marquette. But I told them I wasn't coming out. They offered me 5-year, $500,000, like $100,000 a year. This was 1972. I said, no, I'm having a good time. I never had any money, so money didn't really, pique my interest. Let's put it like that. I was having fun in college. And I knew my senior year, I think we were 16-8 my junior year. And I knew next year we were going to be better because we had a kid named Wilbur Thomas coming from Roosevelt coming up. We had all inner city kids played on that team. And we were good. We were good. And we had Johnny Lloyd from Anacostia. We had Wilbur Thomas from Roosevelt. We had, Steve Garrett from DeMatha. We just had all these local guys, and we were a good team. We could have, we almost had even a better record than that, but I got sick my senior year. I wore my body down. So we got beat by Temple and St. Joe's in that stretch where I think we could have gotten them if I was healthy. But if I wasn't healthy, we weren't going to get them. But they wanted me to come out. I just had too much fun in college. I wasn't coming out. I stayed for 4 years. And you know what? The best thing in the world is getting my degree and doing well academically. because all the jobs that I got after college, you had to have a college degree to get those jobs. Coaching, you can't coach high school without a high school degree. In college, I coached assistant coach at Stanford. I high school coach at Menlo High School in the Bay Area. I coached overseas in China, in Shenzhen. I was assistant coach in the G League. So I coach, but you know what? I wasn't that good of a coach. I tell you the reason why. I'm not a yeller or a screamer. Now, if you want me to help you as an individual, I'm a really good individual coach. But when it comes to coaching a team where people aren't motivated, very difficult. Very difficult.
So when you so like when the draft was happening, were you sitting at home? Like,
No,
what was going on?
I was going to class. I was going to class, and the sports information director, he was walking across campus, and he said, "Hey, Kermit, you just got drafted by the Lakers." I said, "Oh, that's nice," and I kept on going to class. It's not like it is now.
So did they flew you out? Like,
Yeah,
so then you get the huh?
and they were going that year. The Lakers were playing the championship against the Knicks, and when they drafted me, they told me, "We don't need you right now. We're drafting you for future." But I didn't believe them. I said, "Oh, I'll play." I sat on that bench for good 2.5 years because they had guys like Connie Hawkins, Happy Harrison, Bill Bridges. They had some good players. And I kept saying, "I'm going to get off this bench." But the problem was the coaches that we had, wonderful guys, but they were point guards. You know, Bill Sharman and Bill Sharman was the head coach, and John Barnhill was the assistant coach. Only two coaches back then, and they both were point guards. So I said, "You guys need to work with me." So they would throw me the ball, make a right hit, left. They didn't know what they were doing. Not for a big man. They're good coaches for X's and O's, but not working with me. And that's why I went to Pete Newell, who was a general manager. I had read that he was a really good college coach. I said, "Coach, you got to work with me." He says, "I can't because it is going to make the coaches look bad." I said, "I don't care if you make coaches look bad. I want to play." So he retired my third year. He says, "Okay, I'm going to work with you." Because I had a 5-year no-cut contract, and I'm telling you, sitting on that bench was not working.
Hold on, talk about that for a minute. 5-year no-cut contract. Talk about that because that's something I never. So that was something they used to do back then. So it's 5-year guaranteed, or they just couldn't cut you.
They could cut you, but they got to pay you.
Pay, I got you. So you play with Kareem,
yeah. Huh? But they could let you go, and I knew that I had to start. You know, now I had the opportunity to play. So Pete Newell worked with me, and very tough workouts. I thought I worked out hard, but it was like going through death camp or something like that. I mean, he worked me so hard. He told me, "If you listen to me and you work hard, you're going to play in the league now." He was right. That next year, I averaged about 9 points and 9 rebounds and coming off the bench. Then the next year, I averaged more. Then I had that incident with Rudy Tomjanovich. And
so let me get your perspective on that, right? Because that's, unfortunately, that's kind of what people associate you with. But like, I want your perspective on that. If you could just give us that.
This is 1977. This happened. Now, it was a very aggressive league back then. You know, people, if you got a technical foul, it was $50 fine. But the year before, people don't understand, the whole Buffalo Braves team jumped me, 4 of the guys. I got in an altercation with John Shoemate and Don Adams. It was Shoemate, Don Adams, Foster, and another guy. They jumped me, and none of my Laker teammates helped me. So when people run at you, you think that things are going to happen. So the next year, when I had the situation with the Houston Rockets, it was the center, Kevin Coonert, who elbows me in the face and punches me in the face. So and he's a 7-footer. So I got in an altercation with him. And see, back then they didn't have camera angles everywhere. So all you see is me turning and swinging because I see a guy who I didn't even know who he was. Rudy Tom running at me full speed. So what am I going to think? You come from DC, you had that situation already, and you just react. Now, it changed my life for sure. Yes, it changed my life because I would have been staying with the Lakers, maybe get a championship or something. But now the owner liked me, Jack Kent Cook. He didn't want to get rid of me, but because Kareem had gotten in that altercation already that the year before, and this is back in '77. So us both being black, that didn't help any. And both of the people we got in the altercation with were white. That didn't help any. So they shipped me off. But see, I had known Red Auerbach for the Celtics since I was 17 years old. Because I didn't know that he lived in Washington, D.C., but his daughter went to school at American University. And one day, my girlfriend and her roommate needed to take this young lady home named Randy Auerbach. I said, okay, we can drive her home. We had no idea. I had no idea it was Red Auerbach's daughter. And we were going to Red Auerbach's house. So when we walk into the door, I look around, I said, oh my God, look at all these trophies. Look at all these jerseys. I said, who's your father? She says, well, it's Red Auerbach. I said, oh my God, let's get out of here. As soon as I tried to walk out the door, he walks in the door and says, sit down, young man, I want to talk to you. So that's how I got to know Red Auerbach. And when the trouble broke out with Rudy Tomjanovich, he grabbed me right away. And I was happy to go to Boston. I was happy to go.
So you became an NBA All-Star in 1980.
Yeah, 80. Now, let's be realistic. I was getting better, but I was not an all-star. Even though I made the all-star team, I was not an all-star. You know what an all-star is. The problem was Michael Thompson, he got injured. Maurice Lucas was injured. And then all of a sudden, it gave me more opportunities to play well. And so that short time, I made the all-star team. But I knew in my heart, I wasn't an all-star caliber player. And the reason is because I have a brother. People told me what to do. All the stars on the playground, Kermit, go down there and do this. So I was really a good Indian and not a chief. I did what I was told. I just enjoyed playing. I enjoyed playing. I mean, I loved playing. Until I started getting hurt later on in my career, I loved, playing the game of basketball.
Man, I mean, so just kind of talk about, I saw you end up coming back in the league in 1987 with Golden State.
Well, that's a funny story. Well, I was assistant coach with Stanford University. And so the Golden State Warriors would come up there and play all the time, use the gym. So I would play with them because I knew all the guys. And Chris Mullin was my roommate and all that later on. But if I rested, now here's the thing. If I rested for 2 or 3 days, I could play again. The NBA is every single day in practice. My body could never recuperate. But when they came up and played, I said, I can play with these guys. And so Don Nelson saw me playing with him. He said, hey, you can still play. I said, no, I can't really still play because every day that I play, my body's is breaking down. Now, if you give me a game where all I had to do is play every 3 days, oh, yeah, I could play. I could still play well, but not in the NBA. Nowadays, they give these guys breaks. They don't have to practice, but that's not how it was 30-some years ago. And so he says, well, I'll offer you $10,000 if you just try out I said, no, that's okay. Then I think he got up to $20,000. I said, no, that's okay. When he got up to $40,000 just to try out, I said, okay, what time do you want me there? And this is 1980 something, so that was still a lot of money. I said, okay, I'll show up. But I knew my body couldn't take it. But you know what's so strange about that? Because at the beginning of the year, I started from sitting out all those years, I was a starter. But I knew my body was going to break down. It's like it just it just couldn't be repaired. It's like having a tire on your car that's bald. As long as you don't drive it, it's not going to burst. But when you start driving it again, it's going to burst. It's not going to make it. And that's exactly with my body. I knew it. And after about the 20 games or something, I don't know what it was, I said, this is it. I could hardly even, walk after a game. So I knew it was over. So that was it.
Man, that's amazing. So, just to bring everything together, I got two final questions for you. One, when you were at American, what would consider you guys rivals in terms
Oh, it
of?
was Georgetown, LaSalle Temple, St. Joe's. But you know what? There were no really rivals before because they had never been, American was never really that good. You had to go back, oh my goodness, a long way. And they weren't in the conference that we were in either, I don't think. But we knew that we could beat, toward my senior year, we knew we could beat Georgetown, St. John's, Duquesne's, LaSalle. We knew that we could compete with anybody. We knew that because we had three of us got drafted by the NBA. Now, I'm the only one that made it from that team, but three got drafted. And he had two other guys who played overseas. Now, American University, I don't know what happened, what kind of conference they're in now. I don't know. But, we played some tough teams. Texas A&M, my University of Miami, Old Dominion, Richmond. We played good teams. Now, we had some easy ones, too, like Ryder and teams like in Loyola, Baltimore. We had some easy teams, but we played better against the good teams.
And my final question for you is this. So I never got to ask you this. You're from DC.
Now,
Who were your three toughest matchups
on a
or on the playground? And then who are three people from DC that games have impressed you?
Well, you had Adrian Dantley before. Adrian Dantley, I've known him since he was in the ninth grade, and that brother would work. On Christmas Day, he's in the gym working. See, his work ethic it's unparalleled. And he was 6'4". They say he maybe was 6'5". I never saw him dunk the ball, but he was just so fundamental in his footwork and such a serious young man. When he came to work, it was hard checking him too. The other guys from DC on the playground that really gave me a hard time, I can't remember a lot of their names. But by the time, though, I was a senior in high school, if you weren't a professional ball player, I was the best big man in DC. If you weren't a professional, an NBA, I had gotten up to be strong enough, big enough, I could handle anybody in DC if you weren't a pro. Now, and you had some thugs in DC too, that were some tough guys, but big, strong. But I just felt comfortable and confident no matter what playground I went to. Now, the NBA, oh my goodness, because I made the all defensive team, I always had to play against the best 3, 4, or 5 guy. So I had to be in great shape for the threes because they'll run you around. Like Bernard King, Adrian Dantley, Walter Davis, just keep going on down the list. Just so many guys that were good that you had to run. You had to be in good shape. Then if I played the 4, I had to play against people like Elvin Hayes, Truck Robinson, Lonnie Shelton, Maurice Lucas, all these guys that were tough. Then when I was playing with the Lakers, they didn't want Kareem to be in trouble, so I had to play against Dan Issel, Moses Malone, people that wouldn't get Kareem would get in foul trouble, so I would have to check those guys. So it was good that I was big and strong, but it was good that I was in good shape. You had to be in shape. You had this boy. The NBA is so. I don't play now, but back then, The superstars are superstars. They were superstars.
So just one. I'm sorry, I got to jump 1 minute. Do you and Kareem still have a relationship? You guys are still close, or?
No, you know what? If we saw each other, we'd be. I haven't seen him for a couple of years, and you know why I haven't seen him for a couple of years. But we were close. But he's an introvert. You have to understand. He's an introvert. It's not like he would invite me over, at his house and stuff. But he's more comfortable with himself. You can tell. I mean, he's just Kareem. Great professional. I mean, always worked hard. Never had an attitude. He was a professional. That's all I can say.
Man, I want to tell you, it's been a pleasure to interview you. This has been probably my favorite interview I've done, and I've interviewed Grant Hill, a lot of different guys, man. But this has been great. Hopefully, we can do this again. Because, I continue to build a relationship with you outside the interview. I think your story is important, specifically being from the same area as you, attended the same high school as you, and it's been a pleasure to have you on.
I appreciate.
Thanks, Eb. So thanks everyone for checking in. Make sure you check it once we get it on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts. Also follow our website, ablballing.com, and Twitter, the ABL USA, and also Instagram, ABL Balling. Thanks everybody for another episode. We'll catch you next time.
Take care, guys.
That was great, man.
Take care.